Yo guys, and welcome to a new video. Today we are talking about Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Alright, I know I have been off YouTube for a few weeks and I probably will not be back for another few weeks, but I really wanted to make a video about this movie right at the moment when I was seeing it earlier today because, well, there has been a lot going on around Black Panther Wakanda Forever. First thing, obviously, the passing of Chadwick Boseman. I have talked about it a lot on this channel, and it's just, this movie was doomed to fail from the beginning. And that has mainly got to do with the fact that, well, Chadwick isn't with us anymore, and there was a lot of behind-the-scenes drama surrounding Letitia Wright playing the character of Princess Shuri in this movie, and she was gonna have a prominent role in this movie, and she did some things behind the scenes that people weren't the biggest fan of, so she was in the vein of getting cancelled, and then she wasn't, and then she made this movie, and people were still mad. But, well, she's the lead role, so who fucking cares? And yeah, well, this movie had a lot of trouble because of those things. And obviously COVID was a thing too when they filmed this. And you can see it in the movie because COVID was such a big thing that every single person from the Talokan tribe or the Talokan people, when they were on land, because COVID was only on land and not in the sea, when they were on land, they wore these water-made mouth masks or face masks. So I thought that was really beautiful. It was a good gesture to be safe in a COVID-filled world. They made their own face shield and face mask. I thought that was beautiful. But now we're talking about Black Panther Wakanda Forever because wow, this movie did something. And first things first, Phase 4 of Marvel wasn't the best. I think everyone knows it. If you enjoy it, if you hate it, even when you enjoy this phase, you do have to say that this is just not Phase 3 of Marvel. But obviously, this is post Infinity Saga, so we have had everything with that. And to get ready for Wakanda Forever, I watched Black Panther and Civil War, and when you see Civil War, it's so incredibly simple with everything that it does, but it feels so grand scale, and that was what was epic about those movies. In Phase 4, we have a lot of multiverse things, we have a lot of big epic showdown things, and the expectations were a lot higher. This movie, we already knew it would be a tad bit more grounded than the rest of Phase 4, but not in the reception and not in the feels, just because everyone is going to see this movie to see how drastically it would fail. I always say to my manager and my colleagues in the movie theater I work that this movie is gonna have 3 types of audience, or 4 types, I don't know, we're gonna count them down. The first type of audience is just the culture. This movie is a cultural movie. The first one was too. It will bring those people in and I love it for it. The second one is the Marvel fans. Obviously, the Marvel fans. But the third one, the most important one, and I do think there are some people that are part of this group among you guys maybe. And I don't know the English word for it, so I do think it's just called disaster tourists or something like that. And it's just the people that really want to see this movie drastically fail because they tried to make it without Chadwick Boseman. And I know we have talked about it before, the recasting of Chadwick Boseman's character T'Challa, or the not recasting. They chose to not recast the guy. I was wary about that, but a lot of people were very angry because they thought that T'Challa should live on with another actor to pay tribute to the character for Chadwick Boseman. And I stood behind that. I didn't care that they didn't recast him because obviously I only see Chadwick Boseman in the role of T'Challa and I really want that role to remain his. And when you give it to another actor, it's going to be shared and people are going to gonna look at the other guy as T'Challa too, but now it's just from Chadwick Boseman, and I really was part of that group that did not want to see the guy recasted, but I understood why people would want that. When you see this movie, and there has been a lot of hashtags online recently about hashtag recast T'Challa, especially after the premiere, so I was scared for it, but the movie pays tribute to Chadwick Boseman in a phenomenal way, and that is the best thing about this movie, and that is what I mainly wanted to talk about. It's just that this movie, yeah, it could have used Black Panther like the T'Challa version of him. If they recasted him, this story could have included that. But one of the most beautiful things in this movie is what Ryan Coogler did in only a few months to rewrite this entire story before they started filming. They made the story about loss, about mourning, about grieving, about just living on without a legend in T'Challa. And I gotta say that Ryan Coogler and every single actress and actor in this movie did a phenomenal job of making that kind of story work and paying tribute to Chadwick Boseman. He will live on forever, mainly because of what this movie did. They didn't recast him, so he was actually dead, and they made it unclear to what he died. It was an unnamed disease. They literally say it in the movie like the disease is unknown, but hey, yeah, it's a disease. It's probably cancer. It wasn't real life, so yeah. And they made it about that, and they choose to, well, let the guy die, and made the movie about grieving. And the movie makes you cry in the first 2 minutes, and then again in the ending with the best tribute of all of them. I mean, I like what they did in the beginning, and I very like what they did throughout the movie, because it's a main thing that comes back. Chadwick Boseman's legacy, you can feel it in the entire thing, but in the ending there's a piece, and that really made me tear up. It's just so beautiful how they did it. It's built up from the beginning, and the tribute that they pay is awesome. And it's not until the end of the movie that they actually are ready to let Chadwick Boseman go. And it's not until the end of the movie that the audience is going to be ready to let Chadwick Boseman go. So that was incredibly well written from Ryan Coogler and the rest. So yeah, kudos for that. Another thing I already said was that you can feel Chadwick Boseman's legacy throughout this movie. It comes back a lot. The grieving, the loss, them not knowing what to do without T'Challa, or them not knowing what to do in the absence of Chadwick Boseman's character T'Challa as the King of Wakanda. So it was interesting, but it was also a very good thing, as you really are not capable of letting him go so soon, and for them to just go on with things. I was scared of that, and they didn't. They got back to it. It really was a main part of the story, which made sure that Chadwick Boseman, even though he was not physically present, he was spiritually. He was there. He was a main part of the story. He was still a protagonist, even though he was not on screen, even though he was not physically there. So that was really good, that he actually still is a part of this world, even though he's no longer with us. And that was so beautiful and so great, and I really love that. So yeah, talking about all the problems, this movie did a great job of just whooping them off the table and giving us a perfect tribute to Chadwick Boseman, and a very, very good movie within that. So even though Chadwick Boseman was not with us anymore, the movie still stands. The movie is a worthy sequel. The movie is a worthy send-off for the Troubled Phase 4. This movie, it isn't the top 10 Marvel movie, but it's definitely really, really good. And I'm very happy that this movie is made in the way that it has been made. Now talking about other things in this movie, apart from Chadwick Boseman, of course. We have Namor the Submariner. They never say the Submariner, but in the comics it's the Submariner. In here, it's just Namor Kukulkan. And I gotta say, I loved him. And I didn't think I would when I saw the trailers and I saw the interviews. It really didn't catch on with me. I knew the popularity of the guy, but it was just I wasn't feeling it that much. But right from the first scene where we see him, I was sold. I knew it would be a great character. I knew it would be a great study on two different sides to a conflict, and the conflict between Wakanda and Talokan was really well put, and I really liked what they did with it. As you can really feel what the Talakonians or the Telecanasians meant with what they said and with what they did. Their actions were justified because of the things that were happening in this movie. Again, having to do with Chadwick Boseman and mostly the choices T'Challa made. Again, they pay tribute to him and they extend on the story in a good way. Namor, just a good example of how you make a good villain that is not just in the cultural movement, that is not just a copy of Black Panther, but bad. It's really its own thing, and they can do really, really great things with this character and with this country in the future. And the way they handled it in this movie is good because we now know. Obviously, they weren't going to have this thing be a one-off, so it's good to have something that we know of that this will live on longer than Killmonger did. Because Killmonger, he was great in the first one, and I really hated the fact that they killed him off. So to finally have something in this Black Panther universe that can go on in a certain way, I'm not saying in what way, maybe the guy dies and he lives on in the ancestral plane. So it has something, and it is good. And I really liked what they did with Namor. It was really good. Another thing I really liked was the acting. Everyone was phenomenal. Everyone is saying Angela Bassett deserves an Oscar nomination. Not saying that. If she gets one, I would be surprised, but it was really, really good. And if she does get one, I mean, I won't be surprised, but I don't think it will be the case. Another thing about the acting is Letitia Wright, because wow, she was awesome. I always had doubts about Letitia Wright being able to carry a movie, and especially a movie like this, but she did it in the best way possible. She was great. She was emotionally loaded. She had all the right feels. It was maybe a little too big near the end what they tried to do with her and what they tried to have it done with her. So that was maybe a bit too much for the first movie with her as a lead, but she did phenomenal. I gotta say, she was awesome. And M'Baku was awesome. He didn't have a lot to do in this movie, which I always find a shame because I really love Winston Duke's take on M'Baku and Winston Duke's take in the Marvel Universe. But the things they let him do, those were really fun. There are a few comedic relief moments in this, and he managed to make a lot of them happen. So yeah, I really love M'Baku and I really like what they did with him. I just hope in the future of Wakanda and in the future of the Marvel Wakanda universe, I hope they do more with him because I really want to see more of him. Then Nakia, she comes in pretty late in the movie, I think, but she's still pretty good in what she does and it's awesome to see her, but it's nothing special. The character I was not so happy about was Okoye, because I do like her character from Black Panther and the Avengers movies. But in this one, they didn't really give her a lot to do. They had a great storyline put up for her. In the beginning of this movie, they did something great with her that I really loved. She had some great action sequences, but it's after the action sequences that something happens to her character, which is a drastic change, and she acted off perfectly, and then they forget about it for the entire movie to go back to it and just shoehorn the ending of it. So I really didn't like what they did with their character. They had something great build up and forgot it for the rest of the movie, and the movie is damn long, so I didn't really like that. Queen Ramonda, an awesome character. There are some things happening in this movie that I did not expect with her character, so that was interesting, and that was like That was a real shock. That was a real plot twist. Not gonna say it. Alright, so yeah, this movie, it had its problems, mainly the length, mainly some of the characters, and mainly Everett Ross that was just walking around with a character that I'm not gonna name here, but the character that was with him is important for the future of the MCU, and I really was happy that they put her or him or anything else in this movie. But they didn't give her a lot to do, which was sad. If she was not in this movie, nothing would have changed. So, yeah, it's an important character, but it could have been with a more important story. So, yeah. How did you like Black Panther Wakanda Forever? I could talk about this movie for hours because it's just so interesting what this movie managed to do. It has some great things happening. It has some points that just could be better. Another thing I really didn't like was how Talokan, which is beautiful in and of itself, we couldn't really see it because they make the water very trebling, like you couldn't really see in it, and they really took something on that. Like, they knew that in deep water you really can't see shit, and they made sure that we as an audience really couldn't see shit of Talokan. They had one thing where a little bit of light came in, but for the rest you really can't see the city. And when they are talking, they just saved their own guts by going into caves to be able to talk and without people starting to question everything that's happening. But yeah, we could have seen more of Talokan, and they could have trimmed down some other parts of the movie. Alright, that was what I think of Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I really do think it's a worthy sequel and a worthy send-off to Phase 4. It pays tribute to Chadwick Boseman in a phenomenal way, and it makes some great changes in the MCU, and it makes some great starts for some characters like Riri Williams, who was awesome, Namor, who was awesome, and just Wakanda as a character, because Wakanda is not only a city, it's really a character in these movies. I'm gonna give Black Panther Wakanda Forever 825 out of 1,000 or an 8.3 out of 10. How did you like this movie? Please let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.